Bleak House by Charles Dickens, Chapter 39, continued. Never since it had been a court has it had such a fortuitous purse of gossip as in the proceedings at the rag and bottle shop. Regularly, every morning at 8, and the elder Mr. Smallweed brought down to the corner and carried in, accompanied by Mrs. Smallweed, Judy, and Bart, and regularly all day do they remain there until 9 at night, solaced by gypsy dinners, not abundant in quantity, from the cook's shop, rummaging and searching, digging, delving, and diving among the treasures of the late lamented. What those treasures they keep are so secret that the court is maddened. In its delirium, it imagines guineas pouring out of teapots, crown pieces overflowing punch bowls, old chairs and mattresses stuffed with Bank of England notes. Twice, when the dustman is called in to carry off a cartload of old paper, ashes, and broken bottles, the whole court assembles and pries into the baskets as they come forth. Many times the two gentlemen who write with the ravenous little pens on the tissue paper are seen prowling in the neighborhood. Mr. Weevil and Mr. Guppy, with every eye in the court's head upon them, knock at the closed door of the late lamented's house, in a high state of popularity, but being contrary to the court's expectation, admitted they immediately become unpopular and are considered to mean no good. The shutters are more or less closed all over the house, and the ground floor is sufficiently dark to require candles. Introduced into the back shop by Mr. Smallweed the younger, they, fresh from the sunlight, can at first see nothing save darkness and shadows, but they gradually discern the elder Mr. Smallweed, seated in his chair upon the brink of a well or grave of waste paper, the virtuous Judy groping therein like a female sexton, and Mrs. Smallweed on the ground level of the vicinity, snowed up in a heap of paper fragments, print and manuscript, which would appear to be the accumulated compliments that have been sent flying at her in the course of the day. The whole party, small included, are blackened with dust and dirt, and present a fiendish appearance, not relieved by the general aspect of the room. On the entrance of visitors, Mr. Smallweed and Judy simultaneously fold their arms and stop their researches. "Aha!" croaks the old gentleman. "Howdy do, gentlemen, howdy do. Come to fetch your property, Mr. Weevily? That's well, ha ha! We should have been forced to sell you up, sir, and pay your warehouse room. If you had left it here much longer. You feel quite at home here again, I dare say. Glad to see you, glad to see you." Mr. Weevily, thanking him, casts an eye about. Mr. Guppy's eye follows Mr. Weevely's eye. Mr. Weevely's eye comes back without any new intelligence in it. Mr. Guppy's eye comes back and meets Mr. Smallweed's eye. The engaging old gentleman is still murmuring like some wound-up instrument running down. "Howdy do, sir, howdy." And then, having run down, he lapses into grinning silence as Mr. Guppy starts at seeing Mr. Tulkinghorn standing in the darkness opposite, with his hands behind him. "Gentlemen so kind as to act as my solicitor," says Grandfather Smallweed. "I am not the sort of client for a gentleman of such note, but he is so good." Mr. Guppy, slightly nudging his friend to take another look, makes a shuffling bow to Mr. Tulkinghorn, who returns it with an easy nod. Mr. Tulkinghorn is looking on as if he had nothing else to do, and were rather amused by the novelty. "A good deal of property here, I should say," Mr. Guppy observes to Mr. Smallweed. "Principally rags and rubbish, my dear friend, rags and rubbish. Me and Bart and my granddaughter Judy are endeavouring to make out an inventory of what's worth anything to sell, but we haven't come to much as yet. We haven't come to—" Ha! Mr. Smallweed has run down again, while Mr. Weevely's eye, attended by Mr. Guppy's eye, has again gone round the room and come back again. "Well, sir," says Mr. Weevily, "we won't intrude any longer, if you'll allow us to go upstairs Anywhere, my dear sir, anywhere. You're at home. Make yourself so, pray. As they go upstairs, Mr. Guppy lifts his eyebrows inquiringly and looks at Tony. Tony shakes his head. They find the old room very dull and dismal. They have a great disinclination to touch any subject and carefully blow the dust from it first. Nor are they desirous to prolong their visit, packing the few movables with all possible speed and never speaking above a whisper. Look here, says Tony, recoiling. Here's that horrible cat coming in. Mr. Guppy retreats behind a chair. Small told me of her. She went leaping and bounding and tearing about that night like a dragon, and got out on the housetop and roamed about up there for a fortnight, and then came tumbling down the chimney very thin. Did you ever see such a brute? Looks as if she knew all about it, don't she? Shoo, shoo! Get out, you goblin! Lady Jane in the doorway, with her tiger snarl from ear to ear and her club of a tail, shows no intention of obeying, but Mr. Tulkinghorn, stumbling over her, she spits at his rusty legs and, swearing wrathfully, takes her arched back upstairs, possibly to roam the housetops again and return by the chimney. Mr. Guppy, says Mr. Tulkinghorn, could I have a word with you? Mr. Guppy is engaged in collecting the Galaxy Gallery of British Beauty from the wall and is depositing those works of art in their old ignoble bandbox. Sir, he returns, reddening, I wish to act with courtesy toward every member of the profession, and especially, I am sure, toward a member of it so well known as yourself. I will truly add, sir, so distinguished as yourself. Still, Mr. Tulkinghorn, sir, I must stipulate that if you have any word with me, that word is spoken in the presence of my friend. Oh, indeed, says Mr. Tulkinghorn. Yes, sir, my reasons are not of a personal nature at all, but they are amply sufficient for myself. No doubt, Mr. Tulkinghorn is as imperturbable as the hearthstone to which he has quietly walked. The matter is not of that consequence that I need put you to the trouble of making any conditions, Mr. Guppy. He pauses here to smile, and his smile is as dull and rusty as his pantaloons. You ought to be congratulated, Mr. Guppy. You are a fortunate young man. Pretty well so, Mr. Tulkinghorn. I don't complain. Complain? Hi, friends. Well, admission to great houses and access to elegant ladies. Why, Mr. Guppy, there are people in London who would give their ears to be you. Mr. Guppy, looking as if he would give his own reddening and still reddening ears to be one of those people at present, instead of himself, replies, Sir, if I attend to my profession and do what is right by Kenge and Carboy, my friends and acquaintances are of no consequence to them, nor to any member of the profession, not excepting Mr. Tulkinghorn of the Fields. I am not under any obligation to explain myself further, and with all respect to you, sir, and without offence, I repeat without offence, I don't intend to do it. Quite so, says Tulkinghorn with a calm nod. Very good. I see by these portraits that you take a strong interest in the fashionable great, sir. He addresses this to Tony, who admits the soft impeachment. A virtue in which few Englishmen are deficient, observed Mr. Tulkinghorn. He has been standing on the hearthstone with his back to the smoke chimney piece, and now turns round with his glasses to his eye. Who is this? Lady Dedlock? Ha! A very good likeness in its way, but it wants force of character. Good day to you, gentlemen. Good day. When he has walked out, Mr. Guppy, in a great perspiration, nerves himself to the hasty completion of the taking down of the Galaxy Gallery, concluding with Lady Dedlock. Tony, he says hurriedly to his astonished companion, let us be quick in putting these things together and getting out of this place. It were in vain longer to conceal from you, Tony, when between myself and one of the members of the swan-like aristocracy, whom I now hold in my hand, there has been undivulged communication and association. The time might have been when I might have revealed it to you. It never will be more. It is due alike to the oath I have taken, alike to the shattered idol, and alike to the circumstances over which I have no control, that the whole should be buried in oblivion. I charge you as a friend, by the interest you have ever testified in the fashionable intelligence, and by any little advances which I have made, which I may have been able to accommodate you, to bury it without a word of inquiry. This charge Mr. Guppy delivers in a state of little short forensic lunacy. while his friend shows a dazed mind in his whole head of hair, and even his cultivated whiskers. And that is the end of chapter 39.